The Galactic Academy floated high above a silver planet, its walls made of crystal and its ceilings painted with stars. The air shimmered with quiet energy as hundreds of alien students sat in curved rows, their eyes glowing, their tentacles moving, their scales glittering under the soft light, and in the middle of them sat one human, a young man named Jake Miller, who looked far too calm for someone surrounded by species that could crush steel with one hand. Jake was 22 from a small, farming town on Earth. He wore the simple gray uniform of a first-year cadet, his brown hair messy and his expression quietly curious. He was used to dirt fields and wooden barns, not shining metal halls and floating screens. But he had earned his place through the human exchange program, and today was his first real biology class at the Galactic Academy of Xenolife Studies. The room dimmed as Professor Cora entered. She was tall and thin, with skin like smooth glass and glowing veins under the surface. Her voice echoed gently when she spoke. "Welcome, students. Today we study one of the most mysterious creatures in our records, something no species here has ever seen alive." The class leaned forward as a hologram appeared in the air, showing a small round creature covered in thick white fur with tiny black eyes and a small pink nose. The aliens whispered among themselves. It looked harmless, but the readout beside it showed dangerous red warnings: energy spikes, unknown origin, DNA unclassified. Threat level high. Professor Cora folded her long fingers and asked, "Who among you can identify this life form?" The room stayed silent. Some students blinked nervously. Others took notes on their glowing pads. Jake leaned forward, squinting his eyes. Then tilted his head. "That looks familiar," he muttered softly. Professor Cora turned her glowing eyes toward him. "You recognize it?" she asked. Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think so. That looks like Fluffy, from my barn back home on Earth." Everyone turned to him. The room went dead quiet. Even the hum of the lights seemed to stop. Professor Cora blinked. "What did you say?" Jake rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Yeah, that's Fluffy. She used to sleep in the hay beside the cows. She liked to chase butterflies. Sometimes she ate too much grass and rolled over on her side, real lazy creature." The silence stretched. Then chaos broke out. Alarms flashed red across the classroom. Alien students shouted in their languages. The floor sensors activated and shields dropped around the hologram. Professor Cora shouted, "Containment Protocol 7, repeat Protocol 7. Jake jumped from his seat, confused. "What's going on?" he asked. One alien student hissed, "Stay back, human. That thing killed entire fleets during the ancient wars." Jake blinked. "Killed fleets? It's a bunny," he said. "It eats carrots." But Professor Cora's eyes glowed brighter and her fingers trembled while pressing buttons. The hologram expanded, showing ancient battle records, planets, burned ships, torn apart by glowing energy creatures that looked exactly like Fluffy standing on the wreckage. Jake felt his stomach twist. This had to be wrong. The professor looked at him, her voice quiet. "How long have your people known this creature?" she asked. Jake raised his hands. "I told you it's just a pet. My grandpa found her near the woods when I was little." The class murmured in fear. Several aliens backed away from him. One whispered, "Humans have weaponized extinction species." Another said, "Maybe they bred them." Jake felt the heat rising in his face. He wanted to laugh, but no one was laughing now. Every alien eye was locked on him, and the soft hum of scanners filled the room. "Professor." Cora sighed and said, "Mr. Miller, you will come with me at..." Once Jake frowned. "What for?" She replied, "For study." He followed her out of the classroom, the glowing doors sliding closed behind them. The hall was quiet and cold, only the sound of their footsteps echoed. He felt small between the tall silver walls. Professor Cora stopped and looked at him, her voice gentle yet serious. "You must understand, human, if this creature truly lives on your world, it means your planet hides something older than our empire." Jake scratched his head trying to find words. Fluffy just liked to nap on the tractor. She never hurt anyone. The professor's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps she did not need to," she said. "Perhaps you do not understand what she is. Yet." They reached a circular room filled with floating scanners glowing. With blue light, Jake stepped inside as they surrounded him. reading his body energy levels off the charts for a human. The professor whispered, "Unbelievable." He frowned. "I don't feel different, I just feel scared and hungry." She smiled faintly. "Fear and hunger are good signs. It means you are still human." Jake stood silently as data streamed across the air around him. Pictures of Fluffy multiplying in holograms, ancient ruins flashing behind her image. Alien words scrolling fast across the screens. The professor looked at him and said, "If your Fluffy truly came from Earth, then your planet is not what we believed it to be." Jake's heart pounded as he whispered, "Maybe she is just a fluffy little creature, and maybe you are all overreacting," but deep inside he began to wonder if his grandfather's stories about falling lights behind the barn were not just bedtime tales. Maybe Fluffy did not wander in. Maybe she came from somewhere far beyond. The professor leaned closer, her eyes bright, with fear and curiosity both. Then she said softly, "Tomorrow we begin the tests." Jake looked at her and replied, "Fine, but you better give her back. She hates cages." The professor smiled, thin and strange. She said, "Oh, Mr. Miller, if that creature is truly what I think it is, then it is not the cage you should fear. It is the door it may choose to open." And as the lights dimmed, Jake felt that strange cold crawl down his spine, the kind that tells you your life is about to change forever. Jake sat alone, in a glowing white room that had no corners, only smooth walls that shimmered like fog. The air hummed with a quiet pulse, and every few seconds a soft beep echoed from the machines floating around him. His heart raced. His palms were sweaty, but he tried to look calm, like a farm boy who had seen worse things than weird alien lights. A door opened with a soft hiss, and Professor Cora walked in, her glass skin shining faintly under the blue light behind her. Came two guards in silver armor, their faces hidden behind mirror helmets. They carried rods that glowed with quiet power. Jake looked up and tried to smile. "You know, I'm starting to think you folks don't like rabbits much." Professor Cora didn't smile. She set a crystal tablet on the table and said, "This is not about rabbits. This is about what your species has kept hidden for thousands of years." Jake leaned back in his chair, his tone casual. "You think Earth is hiding something? Well, I can tell you right now, the only thing hidden on my farm is a pile of old boots and maybe one lost tractor key." The professor tapped the crystal. The air shimmered and a hologram appeared, showing an image of Fluffy surrounded by ancient alien ships, burning in space. It looked unreal, impossible, but the data line said it was from over 1,000,000 years ago. This creature, she said, was known as a void sentinel. It could absorb energy from stars. It destroyed fleets. It devoured life. And yet you call it Fluffy. Jake stared at the hologram, then shook his head. "You've got the wrong furball mind, likes chewing hay and snoring on sunny days." But the professor's tone stayed sharp. "Your DNA scan shows traces of low-frequency energy, the same type detected near the creature. This means contact. Prolonged and repeated, you are bonded to it." Jake frowned. "Bonded, that sounds creepy." She nodded. "It is more than creepy. It is impossible." The guards moved closer, and one spoke in a metallic voice. "The council demands containment. The human must be isolated." Jake stood up, his voice louder than he meant. "Hey, wait a second, I didn't do anything." Professor Cora raised a hand. "Stop," she told the guards, then turned to Jake. "You will not be harmed, but you will cooperate." Jake crossed his arms. "Fine, but you're wasting your time." She stared at him, her eyes reflecting small ripples of light. "You are the first human to study here and now. You may be the most important one we have ever met." Jake laughed dryly. "Yeah, lucky me." Moments later, they led him down a long corridor, filled with light lines and strange alien writing walls that moved slightly like they were alive. As he walked past windows, he saw stars stretching far beyond the station. The vast silence of space reminded him of nights back home when he looked at the sky and wondered what was out there. Now he wished he hadn't wondered so much. They entered another chamber, this one darker. Colder, a giant sphere of energy floated in the middle with wires running through it. Scanners pulsed and machines whispered codes. Professor Cora pointed toward it. "This is the memory core of the archive. Every life form recorded in our galaxy has a trace here, but your Fluffy, Her data is sealed by something older than us. Jake stared at the glowing sphere, mesmerized. How can something be older than you guys? You've been out here forever. The professor's voice softened. Perhaps forever is shorter than you think. Perhaps your species was never meant to find out. She placed her hands on the crystal console and suddenly a shock of light burst across the room. Holograms filled the air, shapes of planets, ships, beings that looked like humans standing beside glowing creatures of light. One of them looked exactly like Fluffy, larger, fiercer, but calm beside the human. Jake's eyes widened. That can't be real, the professor whispered. It is the first record of your kind, the humans of the old age, the ones who walked among stars before the fall. Jake's voice cracked. What fall? She looked at him with sadness. The fall of memory, the time when your world was sealed and all knowledge erased, the void, sentinels vanished and your people began again. Jake's chest tightened. The idea felt too big, too heavy. My people didn't come from space, we came from Earthfarm's dust, not. This Professor Cora turned the hologram off, then said quietly, maybe you came from both. Maybe Earth was chosen because it was safe hidden behind silence. Maybe the creature chose your world because it trusted your kind. Jake didn't answer. He thought of Fluffy's calm eyes, the way she always knew when he was sad or sick. Maybe she really wasn't just a normal animal. The professor stepped closer. We will travel to your planet, she said. I must see it myself. I must meet this creature before the council makes their decision. Jake raised his eyebrows. Decision about what? She replied, about humanity. Whether to classify you as allies or as another ancient threat. Jake blinked, unsure if he should laugh or run, but before he could say anything, the floor trembled, alarms screamed, red lights flared. The guards shouted, incoming breach. The professor grabbed Jake's arm, her voice sharp. They found us. Who found us? He yelled as the ceiling cracked open and glowing shapes poured in, swirling like shadows made of light, creatures that looked like giant versions of Fluffy. Their eyes burning bright, they roared through, the walls breaking metal and light. The professor's voice shook. They are here to reclaim their kin. Jake's heart pounded as one of the creatures looked at him and everything around him froze in silence. The room shook as light poured through the cracked ceiling. Waves of bright energy rolled across the metal walls and every alarm in the Galactic Academy screamed at once. Jake covered his eyes, blinking against the glow, while Professor Cora shouted orders to the guards. The silver-armored figures aimed their rods, but their beams passed right through the intruders as if they were made of mist. The creatures filled the air like ghosts of light, their shapes half real, half dream. They looked like Fluffy, only larger, with long, glowing fur that shimmered with every movement, their eyes like burning stars. One of them drifted down and hovered above Jake. Its gaze locked on him, and in that strange silence that followed, he felt something whisper inside his head. Not in words, but in emotion's warmth. Calm recognition, like being home. Professor Cora shouted, step back, human. Jake didn't move. The creature floated closer, its light wrapping around him like a soft wind. The guards raised their weapons again, but Cora yelled, hold fire, and the energy froze midair. She looked at Jake in disbelief. It's responding to you, she whispered. Jake swallowed his fear, slowly lifting his hand toward the glowing form. Hey there, he said softly, his voice shaking. You look a lot like my Fluffy. You wouldn't happen to know her, right? The creature blinked and the lights in the room pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then the other creatures turned their heads toward him too, and everything went quiet. The professor touched her communicator, calling the control deck emergency containment, but no one answered. Static filled her ears. The lights dimmed, then went out, leaving only the soft glow from the creatures. Jake looked around the room. Now floating dust sparkled like stars, and he could hear faint humming deep inside his mind. He spoke again, trying to sound calm. Listen, we don't want trouble, all right? I'm just a student here, well. Kind of. The creatures seemed to shimmer and shift their forms, twisting smaller, lighter, until there were only 3 left. One of them circled him gently like a curious cat, and another lowered itself beside Cora, who stared in awe. They are not attacking, she said. They are waiting for something. Jake looked down at his hands. Glowing symbols appeared. Across his skin, like tiny lights moving under the surface, the professor gasped. That's ancient code. It's the same pattern that sealed the Sentinel archives. Jake's voice was quiet. What does that mean? It means she said that the connection is real. They recognize you as kin or as command. Before Jake could respond, the holographic panels in the room blinked back to life, showing a large image of the Galactic Council chamber, the stern faces of alien leaders appearing one by one. The head counselor spoke in a deep metallic voice. Professor Cora explained the disturbance. Cora bowed slightly. Counselors, we have encountered entities matching the ancient Void Sentinel data, but they have made contact with the human subject and have shown no aggression. They appear protective. The counselor's eyes narrowed, then to Jake. He said, "Human, what have you done?" Jake raised his hands nervously. "Nothing, sir. I mean, I didn't call them. They just came. One of them is like my pet. I swear she's harmless." The counselors murmured among themselves before the voice came again. "Impossible. These beings erased civilizations. They cannot be harmless. Destroy them before they awaken." Fully, Jake felt panic rise in his chest. "You can't do that," he shouted. "They're not hurting anyone." Cora turned sharply. "Council, please wait. The human may be the key to understanding them." But the screen flickered off. Orders had already been sent outside the station. Loud sirens began to echo. Defense drones activated. Through the corridors, heavy cannons charged with blue energy. The creatures shimmered nervously, sensing danger. One of them pressed closer to Jake, and suddenly every weapon across the base powered down as if an unseen force had drained them. Professor stared. "This is impossible. They just neutralized the defense grid." Jake's head throbbed. He felt energy pulsing through him like waves hitting shore. His vision blurred. Flashes of memories not his own filled his mind. Stars, cities, voices, calling a single word, Guardian. The professor stepped closer. "Jake, what do you see?" He gasped. "I see them building something long ago. I see humans with them working side by side. They weren't monsters. They were protectors. Something went wrong. Someone betrayed them." The image shifted again, showing explosions, planets burning. And then a voice inside his head whispered, "Hide. The vault. Protect the seed." Jake opened his eyes, sweating, his voice shaking. "They were trying to save us." The professor looked stunned. "Save you from what?" He didn't answer. He just pointed toward the largest creature hovering near the ceiling. It lowered its head to meet his eyes, and he whispered, "You know, don't you? You remember Fluffy." The creature's light pulsed gently. Then part of its glow separated, forming a small shape like a memory taking form. It became the image of his barn, the sunlight, the smell of hay, and there was Fluffy jumping in circles. Just like always. Jake smiled weakly. "So you were never lost, were you? You were watching me all along." Cora whispered, "It has chosen you. You are the bridge between what they were and what they must become." But before Jake could respond, the station shook again. Louder this time. An external blast echoing through the walls outside. Dozens of ships surrounded the Academy, cannons ready, and the Council's voice roared through the speakers. "Target locked. Authorization to fire." Granted. Jake turned to Cora, his face pale. "If they shoot, now they'll kill everyone." She looked at him, fear and awe mixing in her voice. "Then stop them if you can." Jake stepped forward, his hand glowing bright. The creatures circled him, their lights merging with his body as a wave of energy filled the room. His voice calm, but powerful. "Now stop," he said, and across the stars every ship froze in silence. Silence filled the stars. The fleet hung still, frozen in place as if time itself had been locked. The bright cannons dimmed their light. The drones drifted powerless, and the Galactic Academy trembled in the calm that followed. Jake stood at the center of the glowing chamber, his body surrounded by soft golden light, his eyes wide with shock, his voice quiet. "What did I just do?" Professor Cora stared, unable to speak. For the first time in her long life, she had seen a human control energy older than the Council itself. Her voice came out, barely a whisper. "You commanded the Sentinels. They obeyed you." Jake took a shaky breath. "I didn't mean to. I just didn't want anyone hurt. I wanted it all to stop, and then everything stopped. Cora's mind raced through centuries of knowledge, ancient scripts, forbidden texts, legends that spoke of the Harmony Code, a bond between the lost humans and the guardians they made. She looked at him and said softly, "Perhaps the code never died. Perhaps it waited for someone like you." The walls around them began to glow, new shapes appearing, runes pulsing with soft blue light. The air shimmered, and suddenly the floor opened, revealing a staircase made of light leading down into the unknown. Cora glanced at him, her voice trembling. "The archive is opening. This has not happened in 10,000 years. Jake looked down into the glowing spiral and said, "Well, guess we're going down then, right?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, but understand this, human. Once we descend, we may not return." He smiled weakly. "Story of my life." They stepped into the light. The stairs melted beneath their feet, turning into floating platforms that carried them deeper until they entered a vast chamber larger than the entire academy. The ceiling was lost in darkness, but the walls shimmered with moving images like living memories, scenes of ancient worlds, lush forests, shining cities, and human figures standing beside radiant creatures of light. The sentinels. Jake turned slowly, watching the visions shift. One scene showed humans walking through crystal corridors holding small glowing stones. Another showed a battle where humans and sentinels fought side by side against enormous shadows that devoured everything. Cora whispered, "The old war, the void consumed half the galaxy." These were the protectors. The sentinels were born to hold the darkness back. Jake felt warmth in his chest as one of the glowing walls pulsed and opened, showing a small platform in the center with an orb hovering above it. The orb glowed faintly red like a sleeping heart. Cora's eyes widened. "That is the memory core, the first one ever built." Jake stepped closer, drawn by something he couldn't explain. When he reached out his hand, the orb reacted, pulsing faster, faster, until light exploded across the chamber. The walls shifted, forming a single image of Earth floating blue and green, surrounded by thousands of golden threads that stretched into the stars. A voice filled the room, not mechanical, not alien, but soft and human. "We are the keepers of life. We are the guardians of seed and soil when the darkness came. We hid the light, inside the smallest of worlds, the home of our children." The voice faded, and the images showed ships leaving Earth carrying sentinels glowing like suns, each vanishing into the void. Jake's heart pounded. That was us. We came from them. Cora looked at him, her face glowing in awe. "Your ancestors sealed themselves on Earth. They erased their own history to protect the code. Your Fluffy is not a pet. She is the last guardian of that promise." Jake stared at the images, his throat dry. "So she's been protecting us all along." "Yes," Cora said softly. "And now she has called for you because something is awakening again." The chamber shook, a deep rumble rolled through the air, cracks of light splitting the walls. Cora gasped. "They found us again. The shadows. From the ancient war they survived." Jake looked up, seeing black mist pouring from the crack shapes moving inside like smoke, alive, hungry. He turned to Cora. "We have to stop it." "How?" She hesitated. "The sentinels obey you. If you speak the code, they will follow your command." "I don't even know the code," he said. Cora stepped closer, her glass fingers touching his arm. "Maybe you don't need to know it. Maybe you already carry it." The ground trembled harder. Black tendrils reached toward them, the light fading fast. Jake closed his eyes and thought of home. The barn, the smell of hay, Fluffy's warm fur, the laughter of his grandfather. He whispered, "Please help me." A sudden surge of light burst from his chest. The orb responded, spinning fast and bright. The walls flared white. The shadows screamed and dissolved into sparks of dust around them. The sentinels appeared again, floating in a circle, their light merging with his in the orb. Then everything went still. When Jake opened his eyes, the chamber had changed. It was calm, quiet, and brighter than before. The orb floated gently now, blue and peaceful. Cora stood beside him, her voice shaking. "It recognized your plea. Your memory became the key." Jake exhaled slowly. Looking around the chamber at the glowing walls and faint images of the old humans, he said, "So what now?" Cora looked upward where the ceiling began to open, revealing the stars. "We go to your world," she said. "The truth lies there, and the final piece of the code sleeps beneath your barn." Jake stared upward, his mind a storm of fear and wonder. The sentinels hovered beside him, one brushing its glowing fur against his shoulder. He smiled faintly. "Guess we're going home?" Then Cora nodded. "Yes, home where it all began." The silver ship cut through, darkness like a streak of quiet fire, its hull glowing softly against the sea of stars. Jake stood by the viewing window, staring at the tiny blue dot ahead. Earth, his home, his barn somewhere down there, waiting beneath clouds and sunlight beside him. Professor Cora worked at the controls, her glass hands moving fast across streams of data. The sentinels floated behind them, silent, bright shapes, humming like music. In a dream, Jake took a deep breath. "Never thought I'd miss dirt this much," he said. Cora looked up, her voice calm. "Your world is beautiful, even from this distance," he smiled. "Yeah, but you haven't smelled it yet. Wait till you step in cow manure, then tell me it's beautiful." She blinked in confusion. "Cow manure." He laughed. "Never mind." The ship entered the atmosphere. Streaks of flame wrapped around the hull, then faded into soft gray clouds as they descended. The sentinels followed, forming a glowing pattern above the clouds like guardian stars watching over them below. Fields rolled into view, rivers twisted like silver ribbons, and the air shimmered with morning light. Cora whispered, "Astonishing, such color, such peace." They landed near Jake's old family farm. The barn still stood. Red paint, faded roof, a little broken, the grass taller than he remembered, birds scattered as the ship touched the ground, and dust rose around them. Jake stepped out, his boots crunching on gravel. The smell of home filled his chest, warm and real. He whispered softly, "We're back, Fluffy. We're back." Cora followed, her eyes wide at everything, the trees, the air, the buzzing insects. "It is alive," she said, "truly alive." Jake smiled. "Yeah, that's Earth. Nothing fancy, just alive." The sentinels hovered above the barn, their lights pulsing slowly. Jake pushed open the door, wood creaking, sunlight cutting through cracks and dust, dancing in golden lines. Everything looked the same. Old tools, hanging ropes coiled in corners. A faint sound echoed from beneath the floor. A heartbeat, slow and steady. Cora turned her head. There is something under here, energy reading beyond measurement. Jake walked to the back corner where an old hatch lay half hidden under hay. He knelt down, brushing the dust aside. "My grandpa always said, 'Never open this,'" he said. It was just storage for rain barrels. Guess he was wrong. Together they lifted the hatch. A wave of cool air rose from below. Stairs carved from stone led downward, glowing faintly like veins of light. Cora's voice trembled. "This structure is not human." They descended step by step until the light brightened around them, forming a tunnel made of crystal walls humming softly. Reflections of their faces shifting like living glass. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber filled with strange vines and glowing roots growing around metal pillars. Ancient machines asleep under layers of time. Jake walked forward, touching one of the vines. It pulsed faintly, reacting to him. The sentinels drifted down, their lights merging with the vines, awakening something. Deep inside the earth, the ground rumbled softly and the machines began to stir. Cora's eyes glowed in awe. "This is a seed vault," she whispered, "a living machine designed to preserve life when worlds fall." Jake looked around. "So this was here under my barn." "All this time," she nodded. "Yes, hidden under your family for generations, protected by the creature you called Fluffy." She was not guarding herself. She was guarding this. One of the sentinels lowered itself to the ground, touching the soil, and from that touch the entire chamber lit up, showing holographic images of ancient humans planting glowing crystals into soil, releasing small sentinels into the sky. A voice filled the air. Calm and distant humanity. "You have slept long. Your guardians kept the seeds safe. Awaken now, for the cycle begins anew." Cora turned to Jake, eyes wide. "It's calling you. It recognizes your bloodline. You are the link between the past and what comes next." Jake shook his head. "I'm just a farm kid, not some chosen one." Cora smiled faintly. Maybe being human is enough. Maybe that's what they needed. Someone simple enough to care. The light focused into the center of the chamber, forming an orb like before, but larger, brighter. Spinning, faster every second, Jake felt a pull toward it. His heartbeat matching the rhythm, he took a step closer and the light wrapped around him, warm. Not burning, just endless light. He heard whispers, laughter, voices of humans from long ago saying, "Protect the soil, protect the stars, protect home." Then the light faded, leaving silence. Jake opened his eyes. He stood on the same ground, but now the machines around them hummed steadily, the vines alive and glowing green like spring after rain. Cora checked her readings. Everything is. Reactivating this vault is feeding life back into the planet. Jake smiled softly. Guess Fluffy's been busy for 1,000 years, huh? But the professor's smile faded, her tone. Urgent. This will not stay secret for long. The council will come and not all will wish to protect this place. Some will wish to control it. Jake looked at her, his expression firm. Then they'll have to go through me and Fluffy, both from above the ground. Thunder rolled, as if the earth itself agreed outside the barn. Fluffy waited, her eyes glowing gold, her body calm but strong. She looked at Jake and purred softly as if to say, "I told you so." Cora stepped beside him and said the next step. Human is not to hide it, but to understand it. The truth of your world could change everything. Jake nodded. Maybe it's time someone finally told the galaxy that humans aren't just visitors. We're the gardeners of life. The sentinels rose higher, their lights painting the barn roof in gold and blue patterns like dawn breaking. Through clouds, the wind carried the smell of earth and rain, and somewhere deep below the vault, kept breathing life into the world once more. The sun rose over the quiet hills. The barn shimmered faintly under a thin mist, and the golden light of morning touched every blade of grass. The world looked peaceful. But above the clouds, ships were moving, shadows slipping through the sky unseen by human eyes. Professor Cora stood outside the barn, scanning the horizon, her crystal skin reflecting the dawn, her tone uneasy. "They are coming," she said. Jake leaned against the fence, arms folded. "Who's coming this time?" She looked at him. "The council, their fleets left orbit 2 hours ago. They say they come to study, but they bring weapons." Jake sighed, figured they wouldn't send flowers after what happened up there. Fluffy padded out from the barn, glowing softly, her fur rippling with threads of light. The sentinels hovered behind her like a silent army. The air hummed faintly with their presence. Cora turned to Jake. "Your world will become a battlefield if they fear what they do not understand." He met her gaze. "Then maybe it's time they understand." The ground trembled, a deep rumble rolling under their feet. Birds burst into the air as streaks of silver cut through the clouds, landing in the fields around the farm council. Cruisers tall and sharp like floating blades. Doors hissed open and armored figures poured out, weapons drawn. Their leader, a tall alien with bronze